let's talk about Starfox. Let's talk about Starfox. So we're not gonna talk about the this isn't talking about the game. We're not talking about like, oh, they're remaking Star Fox 64 again. Whatever. That's not what this is about. I want to talk about the actual character designs of the crew and the art direction of this game. Because I feel like a lot of people would look at the stuff that I generally make, or the stuff that I generally promote, or the stuff that I talk about, and would say, well, Crow, you're not a big fan of realism, or you're not a fan of like when things aren't super stylized and whatnot. And normally you'd be right. Normally you'd be very right that I'm not the biggest fan of like hyperrealism, or I just think it's kind of boring and whatnot. But the thing is that this isn't just hyperrealism. There is still stylization here. It's just not in a way that is immediately apparent, right? And the best way to show is like, well, in this picture right here, you can see like what does the main crew look like. And one of the main big things that's jarring for this new game is that they're focusing more on the animal qualities of the characters, right? They're focusing more on the fact that they're all animals. But that's not the only thing they're focusing on, and this is probably the most important thing that I feel like is getting glossed over constantly, which is it's not just that they're animals, it's that they're aliens. That is the key thing here, and something that I don't see talked about enough, which is they are aliens. They are meant to be aliens. They were always meant to be aliens, right? And so what we have in the new designs is more of a focus on them being aliens. Because before, let's be real, they were just animal heads on regular people bodies with like fur. That's like, they were literally just animal heads on regular bodies, which is, you know, it's not bad, and like many other things have been doing this for a long time, but it's not as interesting when you think about it, you know? I do think there's a few critiques that are valid. Making the eyes and legs a bit bigger would look more appealing. So that's what I'm gonna get into. I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into what about these designs I feel can be like touched up. And this isn't me going like, I'm gonna edit someone's art, because that's not what I want to do. I'm just gonna show you why things kind of look off, and why some people are responding, you know, the way that they are to things, and how people are like, oh, Falco has lost all his aura. And it's like, all right, let's actually talk about some of this stuff for real, right? So a lot of the comparison that people will be making is a lot of the comparison that people are making when it comes to these designs are, so let's just have this for prosperity's sake. So this is new Fox McCloud, right? This is 2026 Fox McCloud for the new game. Look at him. He's a charming little furry guy, right? And then you have, might be a lower quality image, but, and then you have this Fox McCloud. I don't know why he's so small. Image quality. Anyways, then you have this Fox McCloud, right? And this is the Fox McCloud that everyone has been using as like a reference point, because it's the most recent of the recent game, which is Star Fox Zero. But even this render is from his Starlink cameo or whatever. But whatever, it's pulling from the Star Fox Zero design, which is done by Platinum. Which the Star Fox Zero design was designed by, let me get the name of the artist. Was designed by, this is a fun fact, one of the original artists for the Breath of Fire series over at Capcom, Tatsuya Yoshikawa, right? Was the original designer for this version of Fox. But it carries something that is been common with like this version of Fox, which has been adaptation of the Smash Brothers version of Fox, which is in itself has been an adaptation of the Command version of Fox. So this is the part that I kind of draw a little bit of ire with the more recent Fox designs, is his head shape is very he's got kind of like a baby head, which is something that has always like thrown me off about it, right? And it's because they're basing it off the art direction of the Command games. And in the Command games, Fox is a very like, they're more like chibi-esque designs, right? And they're more simplistic. And they kind of kept that design aspect when they were designing Fox's design for Brawl too, right? And while I don't think it's necessarily bad, it's not my favorite iteration of Fox. I think many people's iterations of Fox that they remember, especially for like people my age who are like, 30, is people remember Star Fox 64 Fox, and people remember Star Fox Adventure and Assault Fox. Assault is where his head design started getting, like, he started getting the big forehead, right? And but it was always stylized, and I think that's something that people enjoyed, was the stylization of the characters. A point of comparison for this, though I can see it's not perfect. Well, here's the thing, right? This is modern Fox, whereas, like, okay. This we will say is the more, this we will say is the more like, hold on, we'll say post command design, right? Obviously they were using the command design into the Smash Brothers design as the blueprint. So it reminds me of the kind of situation where Nintendo had the GameCube Zelda trailer that are more realistic, but then put out Wind Waker. It's kind of the opposite of that. So this design, to me, this design feels like an evolution of Starfox on the SNES. So this feels like an evolution of Starfox on the SNES, whereas this feels like an evolution of Fox post command. And the reason why I say that this feels like an evolution of Starfox post SNES is because he carries some of the energy of the original SNES concept art. Not just the puppets. I know there's some contention between people being like, they're based off the puppets now, or they're not based off the puppets. Are you blind? Like, there's a big argument going around, and I feel like that is up to interpretation until they just straight up say that was the inspiration. But I don't think that that's too far off from what the direction they're going with this, because they retain that look. Because some people are like, oh, he looks like Fantastic Mr. Fox. I'm like, I don't think that's unintentional. I think that that's part of the charm of it, right? Because people forget that the original inspiration of Star Fox was Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds was a Thunderbirds was a puppet series back in the day that inspired the original Star Fox, right? So there's always this sense of wanting to make them look a little bit more, a little bit more like puppets, or a little bit more like stuffed animals in a sense, I do think it's weird to keep Fox as he's been. Feels like if we kept Link as he is in Ocarina of Time. Well, some people would want that. That's the thing, is that like the contentious part about Nintendo and being a fan of Nintendo is that nobody is ever happy with any redesign ever, and people like the version that they played first and enjoyed the most. That's always the case. So this was always going to draw the response it was going to draw. But there's one key thing about these designs that I kind of enjoy in terms of like a character designer myself, is that people say like, oh, they're just leaning into realism, but they're not. That's the thing. This is still stylized. And the best example I can give is the proportions. And this is something that everybody has been having kind of an issue with, right? So when you look at Fox's proportions, right, in the new one, his torso is like this, right? Like this is his torso. This is where his arms are at, right? I'd say no. Well, his torso more or less starts here, right? And then his pelvis and legs are tiny by comparison. When you actually look at like the silhouette, it's still stylized. It's just with a hint of realism, right? Like these are still very stylized proportions. It's just that now he's got more of like a realistic fox head instead of like a cartoony fox head. But even then, it's still stylized. It's not exactly like hyper realistic. Like there's still aspects of it. Like Fox still has his general eye shape, which is like this shape, right? Which is we see carried over from here, where his eyes are that shape. there are still aspects of Fox that are there, that are part of his typical design. And on top of that, I saw another person, I forget who it was, but I saw them point out, so he has paws at the bottom for his legs, but he still has regular humanoid hands with 5 fingers. Isn't that strange? Isn't that such a weird contradiction for a character design? To give him like human length arms and hands, but give him animal feet? Almost like he's an alien? So that's the thing, right? And this isn't me saying like you have to agree with me or you have to enjoy the opinion that I'm giving here. But what I think is interesting is that they are leaning into having them be more alien-esque, right? Being more uncanny, which is what they should be, because that's what they are, right? But I think a lot of people usually, when they're looking at these designs, one of the biggest issues they have are with the neck, because there isn't like a normal like human neck like you would see on this design. Let's see, let's play with both of them so we can see what we're looking at, right? So if I were to do this similar thing for this version of Fox, we would see, you know, general proportions, right? Let's say his torso's about there. Legs about here. Like, he's more squat, but the point being is that his proportions are way more unified, like a human body, right? And then, you know, that could be about here, but then he's got the big cartoony head, right? And it almost ends up looking like a guy in a mascot suit to some extent, right? When you look at the breakdowns, right? So, you know, if I were to do, wait, hold on. But if I were to do this and just show you just the construction of their bodies, you know, this is regular Fox that we've had forever, and it's just like, oh, look at that. It just looks like a very squat guy, right? Still overall like normal proportions, whereas this one, it's like New Fox has way more of just a general like exaggerated frame. When you look at them as just silhouettes, the New Fox definitely stands out like a lot more, right? So there's that. Falco's feather fingers. Falco has always had feather fingers. It's just that now we're actually seeing them in high definition. You look at some of the old games, he always had that. And even in Smash Brothers, he always had the feather fingers. Listen, I'm also calling people out on not actually paying attention to these designs over the years and instead just having a meltdown when the new designs get shown off. And I'm like, no. I'm gonna go on a tour on why the new designs I feel like are just an evolution of the original vision of Starfox, right? Part of the other reason is I think a lot of people misinterpret what the actual like thematic story of Starfox is, which is like, hey, these guys are mercenaries. Their jobs are to go help during wars or battles and to kill people, right? Like, let's be real. That is their job. Like, they may work for Cornerian military most of the time, which in our eyes, in the game that is displayed to us is the good guys, quote unquote. They are still like dogs of war, you know? But this is what I mean though, like with these designs, is like there is much to draw from in terms of like how to make them interesting. And even, you know, even if we actually look at what's going on in the design, right? So this is something I actually want to talk about, which is the detail in the costuming. And the new one, they're definitely going for a more grittier, realistic look. I say grittier, but obviously it is still Starfox, and who knows how much more darker they're going to try and make the story. But the whole idea is that we're getting more of like a proper tone to what is going on during the story, of Star Fox 64, which a lot of people seem to forget that the game literally opens up on a just city getting destroyed and people like dying and stuff like that. So it's like, obviously they're gonna try and give it a little bit more of the gravity that it probably is deserved in that situation, for better or worse, depending on who you are, like, and how you feel about that stuff. But one aspect of this design that I like is that there's a bit more of an emphasis on them being pilots. And you would be like, well, what do you mean? Their older designs also have that. I'm like, well, here's the thing. Their newer designs actually go even deeper into the idea of them being pilots. And one of the best aspects of the new design that I don't see too many people talking about is the fact that they all have these harnesses, right? You see these harnesses that are literally built into their jackets. So I didn't realize what they actually were, because I'm like, oh, is that just like a cool little like accessory detail? No. On the back of their outfits, you can't see it here, but on the back of their outfits, they have like a ring. It's like a magnetic lock. And on the R-Wing, like the actual R-Wing itself, when we see the seat, it has a place to socket that lock into. It's their harness for when they get into the R-Wing. They're always wearing it so that they don't have to buckle in. They just sit and it auto locks them into the seat. It's such an ingenious bit of like sci-fi spaceship design. When I saw it, when I actually paid attention to what it was, and it's like, oh yeah, we're actually seeing what their harness, like them being harnessed into the thing, and how it's easy for them to just jump in and jump out of the R-Wing like at a moment's notice if they need to, and not have to worry about like, you know, like strapping in and all that. And it's such an immaculate little detail of their designs. But we're not even getting into one aspect of the new designs that I think, again, a lot of people gloss over because everyone's too busy being like, well, Falco looks kind of dumpy and weird and lost his aura. But let me tell you about why I don't think Falco has lost his aura. And you can disagree with me. Again, you're more than welcome. But let's look into what Falco's actual design looks like, right? So this is Falco's design. One aspect that people are not actually talking about with this design is that he's not wearing the same kind of jacket as everyone else on the team, because his jacket he modified himself so that he could wear his original outfit underneath. And what I mean by that is Falco was originally part of a gang called Free as a Bird. When you look at his design in this game, you can see, and you can kind of see it over here in the group shot of them, he has his original gang symbol and name on the back of his Starfox jacket, sort of showing that he never fully let it go, right? That he's both still a member of that gang and a part of Starfox. And on top of that, his outfit has the darker sleeves. And the aspect of it that I like about this is he has metal pauldrons on his shoulder, a la like Mad Max style metal pauldrons on one of his shoulders. So he looks still like he's part of some kind of like space gang, right? It's tiny details like that that I'm like, wow, they really thought these designs through, you know, in a meaningful way that's not just let's make them hyper realistic. There's a lot of things going on here, and I feel like not enough people are giving credit to this. Like, yeah, is it weird that he's got like just a regular bird head now and he's not as like sleek as he used to look? True, I will agree with that. And you know, if we're gonna get into like what people's issue with Falco's actual design is, it's literally his proportions. Because if we go here and we actually draw, you know, when Falco's standing up, he's got a very much like a tube body. Like his body's proportions are very tube-like, you know? There's not a lot of break in the shape. So he's sort of like this, and then when we see him standing, he's got like a bit of a this shape going on. Like, we saw him standing in that one bit, and he's got like, he looks like he has scoliosis. Like we saw him doing this, right? And everyone was like, oh god, Falco, what did they do? What did they do to you, right? And I think that could be alleviated in like them actually going and tweaking his proportions a bit, right? And I think that's the key. So, you know, his general head shape is like this and like that, right? I think what they just need to do, if they really if they decide to go forward with these designs, is to just break up the silhouette a little more. So make him a bit more heavier on the upper body, right? So like give him more of like this kind of physique to complement the fact that he's got like these like wider hips because of his bird legs, right? The one thing that I see a lot of people doing in they're like, oh, redesigning the new designs or fixing the new designs, is that they just get rid of his bird legs, and I think that that's the wrong approach. I also think it's kind of lazy, because the thing that makes this design so interesting is the fact that they are focusing on the bird aspects of his legs, you know? So it's like, all right, now make those look better, or make it work in a more interesting way. And it's like, guys, we have the Rito from Breath of the Wild. We have bird people already that have these kind of shapes. Like we have the blueprint. We can make them look cool. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things that like I've been seeing people do the redesigns, and it's like, you just designed old Falco. You didn't even like try to make this new design interesting, you know? That's my only thing that I will say about like these designs, is that yeah, I think they should make Falco's you know, not make him so much of a like a tube shape, and actually break up his design to be a little bit more, you know, give him more of the superhero-esque barrel chest and whatnot, right? And I do think that his eyes could stand to be a little bigger. That's like the one thing I will say. Like proportion wise, I think Falco is the one that kind of would probably need the most tweaks, but he's also the only one on the cast. Well, no, actually, he's the only bird on the cast. Everyone else still has like mostly pretty consistent shapes. It's funny how like Peppy and Slippy are, well, Peppy for the most part is the one that nobody has an issue with, because everyone's like, oh well, Peppy just looks like Peppy, and it's like, yeah, they nailed that one. Slippy people are like, oh, he looks so slimy and stuff. It's almost like he's a frog or a toad, whatever, but it's almost like that's their whole thing, is that they're supposed to be slimy. Like, these are things about these, like them leaning into the whole animal stuff, that I think is just way more of an interesting design choice and whatnot, right? And again, you don't have to agree with me, and I understand the grievances people have with the old designs, because guess what? The old designs, despite what I've been saying, they're pretty killer, you know? When I look at this old Fox design, I think it's awesome, and I think the fact that it was designed by an old Capcom artist is even cooler. Not too long ago, I saw these images going around, which people were being like, oh, these look way better, and I'm like, I don't think it's that they look better, they're different. So these were the original like character head sketches, designs that that Yoshikawa did for Star Fox Zero, right? And I love these drawings. I think these are some of the best that the characters have ever looked for what they were going for in those games, you know? I think that for a game that is supposed to lean into more of an anime like kind of aesthetic, which is what Zero was trying to do, because again, it was being developed by Platinum Games, who usually excel at that kind of thing, right? I think it's a fine design. But I think for something like Star Fox 64, in which they're trying to focus more on the dogfighting, like Star Wars-esque aspect of that game and that story, I think them going for more of a realistic / alien look is just smart. I also think it gets people talking about the game a little bit more too, you know? Because yeah, they could have just gone with these designs, right? And sure, people would have been like, oh, hell yeah, we're just, you know. But I feel like it wouldn't be enough to draw people in. Yeah, that's like my takeaway or my 2 cents on the new designs, is I just think that they have really interesting silhouettes. I think that down the line, they could definitely make these designs like very strong too, if they just tweak a few little like proportion things. Like, I agree with people who say that I think Fox's feet should be a little bigger. I think him having like the little tiny paws is what makes it look so off-putting. But I think I love this design though. Like, I look at both of these designs and I'm like, I like both. I don't know. Is it so crazy to like both designs, to think, hey, these both look great in their own right? You know? I don't know. I don't think that's too crazy to say that, right? Because when I look at the shot of them together as a group, like this right here, I'm like, this looks great. This is Star Fox. You know? I don't know. That's just like my thoughts on it. I also think, you know, if I can say one thing about stylization and realism and whatnot, not every instance of realism is a bad thing. you know? I think that there's a place for it depending on like what the mood you're trying to give off is. I think too many people are caught up in that too many AAA games are trying to go for hyper realistic, whatever. But that's not even what Nintendo is specifically trying to do with the new Star Fox. The fidelity of the game is crazier than I think I've ever seen before, but it's very clear that they want to hit a specific tone with it. And that's not to say that they don't want to exaggerate it, because this is still a game about talking animals in space, flying spaceships. So it's like there's only a degree of realism they can really have without it looking just a bit silly. And I think that them keeping that little aspect of them still being silly is great. They're obviously not losing their whimsy with this, but it's, you know, gonna be jarring around the first time we see it. Do you have to like these designs? Can you understandably be disappointed with them? Yeah, that's fine. But I hate this idea that they're bad, because I don't think they are. At least, you know, that's my take on it. I don't think they're bad designs. And I feel like there's room for them to definitely grow. I think stylization and realism can exist hand in hand. And just because, you know, the one is there doesn't mean that the other one is gone, right? We're still going to have those old designs that are there, and I'm sure if they decide to make a new Smash Brothers, they're going to stick to the more cartoony designs because it just fits the aesthetic more, right? So, you know, there's that. That's my little, you know, take on Star Fox design discourse, which I don't even like talking on this kind of stuff, but I do want to, as somebody who's been a long, like literally lifetime Star Fox fan, like this is an important thing to me, and I do think that a lot of people, especially people who've probably never played Star Fox before, I'm sorry to say, there's a lot of people who've never once talked about Star Fox in their life, who their only frame of reference is either Smash Brothers or the new Mario movie. I didn't even talk about the Mario movie design, which again, great design, but it's also for that movie. And that's not a Fox design that you could just put into the game, like, and then that's it. Like, it's made specifically for the movie and the look of the movie. So that's my thoughts on that one. You know, it's not like when they put Sonic in Wreck-It Ralph and it's just Sonic. They didn't change his design at all, right? I think as a character designer, here's I think one last thing I would say. I think as a character designer, and somebody who is adapting like classic designs, I don't think you should be afraid of taking big swings. I think you should take any kind of swing you can, because it'll at least be more interesting, right? Because anybody could just look at the design on the right here. Anybody could look at that original Fox design and just do the same thing over and over again. But to decide to swing for the design on the left and try to actually make it work and adapt an entire like franchise to that style, it's a hell of a swing. And I think that, as we've seen, it gets people talking. It's people actually discussing what aspects of these designs work, what doesn't, and, you know, how we can evolve them. And I think that that is 10,000 times more interesting than just doing the same thing over and over again, right? So I'll say that, at the very least, for the new Star Fox, I'm excited to see how the look of it develops, you know? If you liked me talking about character designs, hey, come check out my streams. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Yay.